Happy Monday coming up on today's Philadelphia Eagles Now. Are the Birds interested in Saquon Barkley with NFL free agency looming? Could a James Bradberry trade be coming? And we have the latest with Haason Reddick. Is he going to get traded, or could he come back to Philadelphia realistically on a new contract extension? Before we get started, this is a massive offseason coming up for Philadelphia, given how they ended last year, but also, as we talked about with Jordan Mailata, this team is still in a really good position with a lot of premium players on this roster to be a Super Bowl contender in 2024. And now that the offseason is officially in session with the Super Bowl in the rear view, the Kansas City Chiefs getting it done again with that epic win over the San Francisco 49ers, we are going to discuss every move that the Eagles make. And you see these numbers here to my right. We're closing in on 72,000 subscribers. Do you want to stay in the know with all things Eagles? If that's the case, hit that sub button right now. Let's get to 72,000 subscribers. And with that, let's talk some Birds. Let's start off with this major Eagles report tying Philadelphia to running back Saquon Barkley. This report involves a couple of different teams that could show interest in Saquon with NFL free agency coming up in March. Now, that report ties Saquon to Jim Harbaugh and the Los Angeles Chargers. Jim Harbaugh, when he was at Stanford, when he was with the San Francisco 49ers, he brought the same style to the Michigan Wolverines, which helped propel them to winning the national championship over Washington. Loves running the football. He prioritizes a downhill attack, and he loves physicality. So Saquon Barkley as a weapon on that Chargers offense, Greg Roman, now the offensive coordinator, could make a lot of sense as a dual threat, 3-down back. So Jim Harbaugh is said to love him. So the Chargers, who just paid a lot of money for Jim Harbaugh in the coaching realm, could decide to pay up big-time dollars to Saquon Barkley in free agency. But the same report that linked Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers to Saquon also listed an NFC East team as having interest in the Giants running back. Now, let's go through the tea leaves here, and let's put on our Big J journalistic investigative hats, right? You think about the other teams in the NFC East. Tony Pollard is a free agent with the Dallas Cowboys. He could very well leave Dallas and decide to sign with another team. That would then have an opening with the Dallas Cowboys to bring in a running back. You look at the team that we're covering here, the Philadelphia Eagles. DeAndre Swift is a free agent with the Birds. I'd like to see him come back. I've been quoted as saying that here on Eagles Now, while simultaneously the Eagles drafting a running back in the draft to kind of reset that running back clock a little bit. And DeAndre Swift, really talented player, first 1,000-yard season in his NFL career this year in 2023. You're not going to have to overpay or give him a bag. So the Eagles, I think, do make some sense for Saquon, or they could just decide to bring DeAndre Swift back or draft the young stud rookie at some point in the first few rounds. The Commanders are in a rebuilding process. They bring in Dan Quinn as head coach. They still have Brian Robinson out of Alabama, who's still on that rookie deal. I don't think they need a running back on that roster right now. And then the New York Giants. They brought Saquon back in 2023 on the franchise tag, and Saquon is pretty unhappy with not landing a long-term deal from the organization that drafted him out of Penn State. Does Saquon want to go back to the Giants? There is a possibility that the Giants could levy the franchise tag once again, but Saquon's not going to be happy with that because of the lack of long-term financial stability. So the Eagles here could make some semblance of sense. And let's make the case for Philadelphia if indeed they are that NFC East mystery team. Eagles are a win-now squad with a really strong offensive line. Even if Jason Kelce does retire, you have to like the front five for Philadelphia. Philadelphia needs a running back who can pound the rock. I think from a team identity standpoint, Philadelphia has to get back to pounding the rock as far as their style. It only helps out Jalen Hurts in the RPO game, but also helps Jalen Hurts out in throwing the football when you have a running back who's a dual threat option like Saquon. And the good with Saquon, there's a lot of it, and then we're going to talk about the bad as well. He's a dynamic runner and pass catcher out of the backfield, but he can also line up out of the slot a la a Christian McCaffrey and how he was utilized under head coach Kyle Shanahan and the San Francisco 49ers, and before that with the Carolina Panthers. Saquon brings you a blend of power and finesse. He can run through you and over you, but he can make you miss. He can hurdle you, but has that speed to get out to the perimeter toward that sideline where he displays that 40-yard dash pull-away speed. When healthy, all throughout his career, he's put up really good to great production. As far as this Eagles offense now under offensive coordinator Kellen Moore, he can be utilized in RPO sets, in the motion game as well, because Moore is going to bring that to Philadelphia, as the Eagles last year were 32nd in pre-snap motion rate. And I thought the way that the Giants used Saquon his entire career, despite him putting up solid production when he was healthy, was criminal. They didn't use him a lot in the red zone early on when Pat Shurmur was calling the plays. They didn't use him enough as a pass catcher out of the backfield. They didn't get creative with him lining up in the slot or just finding ways to give him the football to let his elite playmaking skills shine. And I thought all of that was really weird. So that's the good with Saquon. The bad, long injury history, especially with the knee. Durability concerns, really with multiple injuries that he suffered over the last couple of years. He's already older, 27 years old, going through that rookie contract as a first-round pick. He's probably going to demand from some team out there, maybe the Eagles in this instance, $10+ million. And the Eagles, Howie Roseman, their team-building strategy, they never really prioritize giving a lot of money to a running back. Now, you can see why the Eagles would be interested when you think about the good with Saquon Barkley. Dynamic player, home run threat. He could take it to the crib anytime he gets his hands on the football. But with Howie Roseman's team-building philosophy that we like to allude to a lot because of previous history is obviously telling when context matters as far as how Howie Roseman has built his football teams, does it make a lot of sense for the Eagles to do this? You look at Saquon's production over the last 4 years, and that Giants offensive line for a long time, really throughout Barkley's entire tenure with the Giants, has been a joke. Yet despite that, again, when healthy, he's been able to play some really, really good football. In 2023, 14 games played, 247 carries, 962 yards, missed some time with an ankle injury, 3.9 yards per carry, and 6 touchdowns. In this Philadelphia Eagles offense, with the offensive line and then the creativity component to it, you have to imagine if he's healthy, the yards go up, average yards per tote go up, and the touchdowns go up, both rushing and receiving. Thought 2022 was a good indication, with the usage rate being what it was, what Saquon can firmly bring to the football field. 295 carries, 1,300 yards, 4.5 yards per carry, and 10 touchdowns. And then the previous 2 seasons, you see that with the lack of production comes the lack of games because of injuries to Saquon Barkley, playing a position in which oftentimes you're not in the league a long time, but you're prone to getting hurt. With that, let's pop up today's poll question. This will be the pinned comment and the pinned question on today's video. So go on down, get your votes in. Should the Eagles sign Saquon Barkley? Type S for sign or P for pass. Still a lot left to get to. Did James Bradberry hint at a trade? And what's the latest with Haason Reddick? First, today's Eagles Now is sponsored by Game Time. If you're looking for last-minute tickets, there's only one app that you should use. It's the Game Time app. And if you download the app for free and you use the code EaglesChat, you get $20 off your purchase. Now, you don't just have to go to a sporting event. Now, me, myself, producer Chip, we love going to Sixers games at the Wells Fargo Center, even though Joel Embiid is out with that knee injury. There are great deals on some Sixers tickets. Plus, you pair that with the code EaglesChat, $20 off. You're going to have a good night at the arena. You can go to some Philadelphia Flyers games. Love what John Tortorella's been doing with the boys. To use some hockey lingo right there, you can go to a Flyers game as the Wells Fargo Center starting to get lit now that the orange and black are playing some good pucks. Or if you don't want to go to a sporting event, comedy show, concert, love comedy, I love music. I've been able to use the Game Time app for that. Was just in Las Vegas for the Super Bowl. Saw plenty of ads for Blue Man Group, which is a great theatrical show. $20 off, code EaglesChat with Game Time. Best seats at the lowest price guaranteed, and prices drop as the event gets closer. All of that information, because we care about you, is down below in the comment section and in the description of this video. Next up here on the show, reading the tea leaves. Does James Bradberry want out of the city of brotherly love, and could a trade happen? There are a lot of complexities to this because of the financial components to James Bradberry's deal, which was backloaded on the deal that he signed in free agency last year. Now, he took to Instagram, and he doesn't really include a lot of Instagram captions on his Instagram posts, but I looked at it. There's this photo of him kind of looking down. Is this him just depressed after having an awful 2023 season? But then there's this photo of him looking down once again, looking a little bit sad and depressed, walking into the tunnel off of the field. And if you're a conspiracy theorist, like sometimes I am, you might look at a photo like this, and it might indicate he's walking away from the Philadelphia Eagles. Does he want to get traded away from the Philadelphia Eagles? Within that Instagram post, there's a picture of his cute daughter holding up his jersey on top of some shoulder pads. But you think about a James Bradberry trade. It could make sense for Philadelphia, right? But there are financial components to this which could make it very, very challenging. With James Bradberry, a dead cap hit of $17.2 million if the Eagles were to cut him. He has a 2024 option bonus of $9.64 million in guaranteed money. The Eagles would also have to pay the rest of the guaranteed money as well as the signing bonus. So that comes if the Eagles were to just outright cut him. But then there's the post-June 1 component to this, where the Eagles, it would cost them $4.7 million in 2024 if they released him after June 1, and then $12.5 million in 2025. That's a lot of money to have to eat to move off of a player who you might be banking on having a rebound season in 2024, because that's literally been the career trajectory for James Bradberry. So it's a lot of money to eat up. But if you can find a trade partner, and if you can trade him away, and you're willing to eat some of that salary, and you can maybe get some player capital back, some draft capital back, while eating some of that salary, that could make a trade happen. It could make a trade make sense. Now, you look at Bradberry's numbers in 2023. He was not good at all. He had an overall Pro Football Focus grade of 56.6, a coverage grade of 54.7, passer rating allowed, oh my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, 108.6, yards per catch 12.3. So every time he gave up a reception, it went for a first down. He missed 5 tackles, which doesn't seem like a lot, because when you watched him, that number seems to be a lot more than it actually is, and only had 1 interception this year. Now, for the Eagles, if you're banking on him going back to his 2022 form, maybe it could happen. Or if you find a trade partner, maybe they're thinking that in their defensive system, he could also rebound in 2024. So if they have a need for a cornerback, they could decide to bring him in. Because you look at his overall Pro Football Focus numbers, and really all of them in general, from the coverage grades all across the board. He always has a pretty good season and a bad season, and a good season and a bad season. That is all indicated by the green, yellow under the defensive grades there at about the middle part of your screen. In 2022, James Bradberry was really good, 74.1 grade. In 2023, it went down to 56.6. But a reason why the Giants let him go, transitioning from 2021 to 2022, is because the grade went down from 79.8 in 2020 to 62.8 in 2021, but then up to 74.1 in 2022. And then this past year, it was awful. Realistically, though, when you have this conversation, whether James Bradberry is hinting at a trade or not, what is the trade value? You're probably going to have to, best case scenario, eat some of that money, and then you're only going to get a late round pick back. So that's something to keep in mind when you talk about Bradberry's future in Philadelphia. Let's round out here with Haason Reddick, and I want to clear some things up on the Haason Reddick front. We covered the story yesterday that the Eagles have granted him permission to seek a trade. Just because the Eagles gave him permission to seek a trade to go elsewhere, that doesn't mean that he's definitely going to get dealt. In fact, I'm not ruling out the possibility he returns to the Eagles in 2024 and beyond. Oftentimes, we've seen this, especially over the last couple of years, teams will do this with their player, and then the agent and the client, this allows them to see what the market is like. And the agent and the player are able to field offers, put out feelers to see what type of compensation and a new contract that individual player can get. The Eagles are not dumb. Howie Roseman is really smart. We have a lot of smart football minds here inside the Chat Sports studios. And even though the Eagles had a bad year, they didn't invest in linebacker or safety like they should have, and he signed James Bradberry back on that deal. A lot of people here who don't have that Eagles bias still value Howie Roseman. I still value Howie Roseman. And the Eagles are not just going to give away Haason Reddick for nothing. He wakes up and he gives you double-digit sacks every year. You don't find these types of special edge rushers growing on trees, and I think in Vic Fangio's system, he can elevate him back to that 2022 form. So Reddick won't get traded unless another team is willing to give him a bag, multi-year deal, making him a top 5, top 10 highest paid edge rusher, and then that other team is going to have to give him that contract, but then also give the Philadelphia Eagles some draft compensation as well. So Reddick is not going anywhere unless that other team gives him a fat contract that the Eagles will not. And that acquiring team, to kind of summarize things a little bit, has to pay Reddick that new deal and then give Philadelphia that draft and player compensation, meeting the demands of what Philadelphia wants back in return. So a totally plausible scenario here is that Reddick is given a permission to seek a trade. Eagles did this with Darius Slay and Fletcher Cox. And Reddick and his agent, they can see what the market is. Team X, what are you willing to give me? Team Z, what are you willing to give me, depending on what Team X is willing to give me? They see what the market is. The Eagles then hear from Reddick on what that asking price is. That determines whether or not the Eagles want to pay him that deal. If they do, or they want to give him more dollars, Reddick, come back to Philadelphia where you've been a stud. Double-digit sack seasons and back-to-back campaigns. If we're not willing to pay you that deal, sure, we'll trade you, but the compensation has to meet our asking price. Wanted to summarize that to clear up a lot of confusion that I've been hearing from Eagles fans. Would you pay Haason Reddick? I'm giving him the bag, or do you want to trade him away? Let me know down in the comments section. Thanks for watching today's show. Don't forget to subscribe.